Hi, guys. Welcome back. Imagine if your support team from birth, your mom, your dad, your family, imagine if they all fat shamed you. How would that make you feel? Today's YouTuber is Virginia, and Virginia's story is called How My Family Body Shames Me. I hope you enjoy.
Sometimes when I talk to my dad through the phone, sometimes he's at my aunt's house or at my cousin's house. And sometimes I speak to my aunt and my cousin, of course. But the only thing they say to me is like, how are you? Are you fine? That's it. And then at the background, I hear like, oh, damn, she's fat. That's it. I haven't seen my family for 3 years, and that's the only thing they say to me. It's like I want to talk more with them, but it's like they don't want to talk to me. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's in my head. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking wrong, but I feel like my family is treating me different because I'm overweight, because I'm obese. They treat me different. They don't treat me like they used to treat me because when I was smaller, when I was younger, when I went to Cuba, I don't know, it's different. The way they treat me back then and now is very different. When I was younger and I used to go to Cuba with my mom, the way they gave me food, okay, eat this, eat that, it's like they were the one who were overfeeding me. So they were the one who was giving me a lot of food like rice, beans, meat, Um, and the last time that I went to Cuba, the way they looked at me, it was different. And the way they treated me, it was different. And now I'm scared to go back to see my dad. I know I have to see my dad. I want to go back. But I'm scared to go.
What a tough deal. You love your dad, you love your mom, you love your aunt and your nieces and your cousins, the whole nine yards, right? But the reality is, what would happen to you if you were removed from your family for 3 years? You live in a different country now. And like she said, every time you reach out to them, instead of asking how you're doing, how are your goals, are you achieving your goals? Are you having a wonderful life? Instead, it's all centered around a person's weight.
I don't want to go. Last time I went, I saw my godmother and my godfather. And it was the first time that I saw my godfathers in 5 years, I think. Yes. And the only thing he said was, is that Virginia? Oh, wow, you are so big. Oh, wow, you are so fat. You have to lose weight. You don't look nice. You are not beautiful. All these terrible things giving, instead of giving me a hug, like it's been 5 years that I haven't seen you, or you changed a lot, no. And the way people looked at me, it was like, you are too fat, you are not welcome. I'm scared to go, really. Like I said, maybe it's in my head.
I can totally see her apprehension. Usually your godparents are somebody that, if something happens to your parents, your godparents are supposed to take care of you, right? And obviously she's an adult now, but your godparents are still supposed to be somewhat close to you. And for a godparent to say, oh my goodness, you are so fat now, it's really interesting. I'm starting to wonder if maybe here in America we're a little bit spoiled. Maybe our parents and stuff aren't so mean. Maybe they actually treat us very nice when compared on a global scale. Because it sounds like in other countries, people tell you the way it is. So here's my question to you guys. Are what they doing in other countries, is it actually a better tough love than the love we show here in America, where sometimes we're afraid to tell the truth? Weigh in below.
And it's not supposed to happen. If you don't see your family for like 3 or 4 years, and that's the first thing you say, or that's the first thing you do, or you treat them different because I'm fat or because they are fat, then something is wrong. I'm sorry. I know I'm fat. I know I have to do something about it, but you don't have to treat me different because I'm fat. And then you treat other people better than your cousin because they're skinny. So yeah, that's why I'm scared to go back to Cuba. My father always says, "Where are you coming? Where are you coming?" I always say, "Yeah, this month," or no, I say in the summer. Then I say in the winter. But you see, my aunt is there. My cousin is almost going, so I can go to Cuba, but I don't want right now especially because I'm scared to go. I'm scared because I gain weight. So the last time I went to Cuba was, I think I was at 90 kilograms, and now I'm at 110, 109. So I gain weight. So I'm scared to go because I know they're going to body shame me and they're going to look at me different and they're going to treat me different. So yeah, I'm scared to go, really. Yeah.
So in America, right, we say, hey, if you love me, why do you call me fat? That is so mean and cruel, right? In other countries, they say, yeah, you're fat, but I still love you. What's the big deal, right? So I'm telling you, you used to be able to tell your friend when he had a booger on his nose. You used to be able to tell your buddy when his fly was down. You used to be able to tell somebody when they had some food on their chin. But now we don't want to step on anybody's toes. What she's going through is legit pain, and I feel for her, and I don't want anybody to feel like that. So I hope you guys don't think I'm coming the wrong way, from the wrong point of view here. But we have to remember that not everybody views and sees the world the exact same way we do. And here's the thing that I want you guys to think about. If this is your daughter and you haven't seen her in 3 years, and the next time you've seen her, she's gained 20 kilograms, which is probably what, 32, 33 pounds? I'm guessing there. So if I'm way off, let me know. But that is actually cause for alarm. That's cause for concern. If one of your family members all of a sudden gains a lot of weight, that could mean that they potentially have some serious health issues, right? And if this happens in the 3 years that you haven't seen them, I could see how family members could be concerned. But it sounds like out of all her family members, her dad is the coolest one that she kind of relates to the most. I think she needs to kind of get over this issue, no matter how traumatic it is. And I think she needs to go visit her folks. I know some of you probably disagree with me. I promise. I feel similar to you guys. I want everyone to be happy. But again, in other countries where it's a little bit tougher and it's not so cushy like it is here in America, people express themselves much differently.
I don't have problems with my dad. Sometimes I make jokes. Sometimes I make jokes with my dad, and I say, "Oh, look, I'm as you. I'm as big as you," because my dad is also not skinny, you know. But my dad is also not that fat. So I say to my dad, "Oh, look, I'm the same. I'm the same as you. I'm big as you." And my dad said, "No, I'm not. I'm not that big as you." But it's as a joke, you know. But my dad never body shamed me. He never talk about it. No. He never talk about my body.
Can you picture her dad saying, yeah, you're fat, but I still love you. You're my baby, right? So again, as an American, we look at this word fat like it's the most horrible thing. But in other countries, sometimes the fat people are loved even more than the skinny people.
My mom, on the other side, she body shames me a lot. So I say everything to my mom, really. Sometimes I say, "Oh, mom, look, I like this boy," or "What do you think?" And mother and daughter talk. And she said, "He's not for you. He's always like that. He's not for you. He's not for you. He's not for you." And I say, "Yeah, nobody's good for me. Nobody." And she said, "Yeah, because I don't know if that boy likes you because of your weight. The boy who is with you is not with you because he loves you. Just for the, I don't want to say this word on the internet. I don't think you're going to marry. I don't think you will have kids. I don't think no guy will love you because you are fat. I know my mom says this to me because she wants me to stop eating. She wants me to lose weight by myself. So she said those things so I feel terrible and I stop eating and I start dieting. But instead of me doing that, what I do is that I eat more. And so I say, oh, my mom is saying this to me. This is terrible. I have to stop eating. I have to start losing weight. But no, my head is different. My head say, you saying this to me? Okay. I will eat more. My head is like that. But people just have to leave me. I know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do. And I will do it on my own time. I'm very tired of it. But yeah, my mom body shames me. My family in Cuba body shames me. I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one.
So true. You are never alone. Guys, I'm really torn from this. I come from an older generation where part of the life that we grew up in was one where sometimes parents said jokes, sometimes your neighbors said jokes, sometimes your best buddy said jokes. But at the end of the day, you always forgave them because you knew it was a joke. Now, people will say, Jesse, there's a little line of truth in every joke, and there is. So, what better way to tell your kids that you love and you care about them than to say, your face is beautiful, you look bigger in this picture and skinnier in this picture. You're trying to let them know subtly, even though it's not necessarily the best way. You're trying strategically to find ways to let your daughter know you need to start working on your weight. Because the reality is, we're able to do these things a lot easier when we're 2 or 3 years removed from home rather than when we're 2 or 3 years removed from age 50. Okay? So sometimes we just have to get over these things. And the best way to get revenge on people is to be successful. So here's the way we're going to be successful. You're going to go get your shoes, and then we're all going to go for a walk. Good morning, venters. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I was able to accomplish quite a bit this weekend. I was able to go and hook up some merchandise for the show. So if you guys want a coffee cup or a water container or a t-shirt or even a sweatshirt or a hoodie, we got you covered. I think there's even an apron in there if you want to wear a Walk Talk Vent apron while while you're messing around in the kitchen with food works and stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool. If you guys like the merch or you guys want to get a t-shirt, you can, but definitely no pressure. I just wanted to have it available in case somebody wanted to join me. And the reason I say join me is because I went ahead and ordered a couple of those shirts myself. So my game plan is I'm going to wear them when I go to Planet Fitness, and who knows, maybe I can find some venters here close to where I am. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but the Olympics had their closing ceremonies yesterday. One of the things about the Olympics that I always find sad is that when it's playing, there's so many different games on. So much so that they have to use different channels, right? Like, so you'll have them on, more than one channel usually at the same time. So it's literally impossible unless you record everything. It's impossible to catch every single event. And I'm sure there's even a couple that don't find their way onto TV, right? And so my thinking is, since we only have the Olympics once every 4 years, at least the Summer Olympics, why don't we expand it? So instead of a 2-week phenomena, why don't we make it where people can enjoy it for a whole month? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking the same thing that I used to, which is nobody really watches the Olympics anyway, right? But this was one of those years where I was actually staring at the screen and watching it quite a bit. I watched probably the best women's basketball game that I've seen in a long, long time, where France shot a last-second three-point shot that would have tied the game, and they did make it, but the gal stepped just a little inch or two inside the three-point arc, so she was only credited with a 2-point shot. But France came that close to beating the USA women in basketball. I love upsets and stuff. And one of the tough things about watching USA basketball for both the men and the women is they are so dominant that sometimes you find yourself rooting for the underdog, which is horrible because you don't want to root against your own country. But I just don't like rooting for the overwhelming favorite. And a lot of times when it comes to basketball, the US is just always the overwhelming favorite, right? So a lot of times you look at the USA team, at least on the men's side, and the women's too, and it's just basically an all-star game of great athletes and great basketball players. Whereas usually the other countries, they have 2 or 3 NBA players on their team, not necessarily all-star caliber, and then the rest of their team is just their national players. So when they end up playing close and almost beating a team that is basically a dream team here in the US, I find that impressive. I'm a firm believer that you can still beat the individual super athletes with team play. If you're a fan of team sports, let me know, because the cool thing about the coaches that I grew up learning sports from is I was always taught that, hey, no matter how good an individual player is, you're only as good as the team that surrounds you. So I think the last 20 or 30 years, a lot of sports have focused around getting a star player and building a team around that player. But I think if you can get a team, you could probably find a way to really dominate sports in the future. That's one of the things that kind of sucks about Americanized sports. A lot of times you have a team where, again, they're kind of focused around one player, and I'm talking basketball, of course. I think that's why I enjoy football more. In football, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. It doesn't matter how great your defense is. It doesn't matter how special your special teams are. You have to have all three working together. You have to have a great offense, a good defense, and decent special teams. You have to have the team aspect in order to win a championship. Because we have teams all the time that have a good quarterback, or they have a good offense, but they have a crappy defense, right? Maybe they have these great special teams that come up with these kick and punt returns for touchdowns, but then their defense is lackluster and they allowed the other team to score last minute, right? So I always loved the team aspect of the game. And that was one of those things that they never really talked about with the Patriots. Yes, they had Tom Brady, but almost every year they had a new cast of characters surrounding Tom. What really made that team special was that although you could depend on Tom in the offense, right, they almost always had really good special teams and defense as well. That's why when you talk about the Patriots, you not only talk about Tom, but a lot of times you would talk about their coach, Bill Belichick, as well. So anyway, back to what I was saying, because I got on a little tangent here, but basically, the Olympics are a special, special thing. And we have a lot of different games in the Olympics. And my thinking is, why don't we set it up where instead of 2 weeks, why don't we set it up where we get a whole month of action? Yes, people have to go to work and people have to return to their lives, but I don't think it's going to hurt anybody to extend it from 2 to 4 weeks. And whatever country is hosting the Olympics, which I believe this year it was Paris, right? Whoever's hosting the Olympics, why wouldn't they want it to last for an additional 2 weeks and bring in all that money for their country, right? Because you got a lot of people that come in and tourism that the Olympics sparks up. Seems to me like that would be something that would be great for a country to be able to enjoy for an additional 2 weeks of the particular year that they're running the Olympics. I guess the next Olympics is going to be in Los Angeles. That ought to be interesting, because LA, every time I see it on the news, it seems like a dumpster fire. So let's see if they can get everything set up so that they can have a nice Olympics. I don't know about you, but you know how every couple of years, different areas of the world, they fight for the right to host the Olympics. Los Angeles has held, what, 2 or 3 Olympics? I know they held one back like in '84, and I think they held one back here within the last 30 years or so. I don't think you should be able to host the Olympics regularly. I think it should always move to a different country, and if you do host the Olympics multiple times, it should be over the course of like 50, 60, 70 years, not 20 or 30 years, you know? So, not that that's a big deal. Either way, I think it's cool that they have the Olympics. So I guess our next Olympic Games will be the winter. If you're like me and you enjoy the Summer Olympics more, let me know. But if you're a huge hockey and curling fan and speed skating, and you enjoy the Winter Olympics more, let me know as well. Guys, a couple of months ago, I took an Uber ride from a guy who had a wound on his foot. And because he was diabetic, that wound that looked literally like no big deal turned into a situation where he had to lose a couple of toes on his foot. And his wound just looked awful. And the way I saw it wasn't that he pulled off his shoe and showed me his wound, but he actually showed me some pictures of his wound because he was diabetic. The thing that blew me away is you figure somebody diabetic would look really, really oversized and obese. But this guy looked like a really athletic, younger guy that was in his 30s, and it just kind of blew me away to know that he was having these severe troubles with diabetes. So today I heard this story of the electric bandage, and I wanted to share it with you. Imagine a Band-Aid that has a little ability to create an electric field. This electric field has a healing speed that is 30% faster than conventional treatments. The technology is such where it's water powered but electronics free, so it's not going to shock you to death or anything, but it creates an electric field that promotes healing around the wound. These are great for chronic wounds. It's effective particularly in those people like the guy that gave me a ride in his Uber, or with Uber, because it helps people particularly with chronic wounds like those people that are diabetic. It's cost effective. It is far less than expensive traditional treatments. I love these type of things that they find simple solutions to, right? It's ease of use. It can be used from home by your average layperson rather than in a clinic where you need to be in a doctor's presence. It's been tested on mice. They found that wound closure was faster, blood vessel formation was promoted, and a lot less inflammation. So we're talking about something that legitimately has some really positive results when they're doing these little trials and stuff. It's activated by a tiny little drop of water, which once again promotes this electrical field around the wound itself. And because it's made in the form of a Band-Aid or a bandage, it can bend and conform to irregular shaped wounds, which I'm assuming means that sometimes when it comes to a weird wound on your finger or your foot or anywhere diabetic patients get wounds, I'd imagine that part of the problem is irregular shaped wounds where they can't quite cover it properly. So that's one of the nice things with this bandage. It can kind of conform. And I'll show you guys a picture of it if I haven't already. But basically it looks like something that a simple little solution that might have a nice positive impact going forward. I just think the idea of your body failing you like that and you having to get fingers or toes or body parts cut off to compensate for the damage, God, that just seems really, really freaky. So back to this guy that gave me a ride. He looks so healthy. And that's what's kind of shocking about people. I've been watching videos of people that find out that they have cancer. And a lot of times with cancer, it's really trippy because a person can look totally healthy one minute, and then all of a sudden you fast forward 2-3 weeks or even 2 or 3 months, and all of a sudden they look like they've lost 40, 50, 60 pounds. Half of their hair looks scraggly and kind of weak looking and not so healthy. And they just look like they age a year every couple of weeks, you know? If you've noticed any family members or friends that went through that same situation, where one day they're healthy as a horse, the next day they find out they have cancer or some sort of malady, and all of a sudden they start aging different than the rest of us. It can be really sad and really unfortunate when you see that. So my hearts and prayers go out to people that are experiencing that. And a couple of our venters have gone through situations where they have had cancer diagnosis and where they have had to go through chemotherapy and stuff. So if you're one of those venters, I feel for you, and I'm glad that you are here with us. And hopefully everyone's cancer can remain in remission, and hopefully everyone can be healthy going forward. You know, that's the one thing is, if you have diabetes, I believe that's something that you're born with or destined to have, right? But if you have type 2 diabetes, that is something that we can kind of prevent. So again, if you're going down the wrong pathway in life, you're eating a lot of junk food, you're really not moving as much as you should, and you're not eating as healthy as you should, you know, that's really a recipe for disaster going forward. You know, it's really trippy when you look at old people. Don't old people kind of look similar? They're all little, they're all kind of hunched over, and they're all weighing a lot less than they did when they were younger, right? We kind of shrink as we get older. And in that same breath, you'll notice you don't see too many huge, obese, elderly people. It's almost like you have a choice. When you get to the second half of your life, from age, let's say 40 on, no one's guaranteed that full 40 years, but if you live a healthy lifestyle and you can avoid things like cancer and type 2 diabetes, a lot of times you can make it to that 80-year range. But if you start to develop bad habits in your teenage years and in your early 20s, and you don't fix those into your 30s and 40s, you're probably going to be one of these people that doesn't quite make it to 80. And there's nothing wrong with dying in your 50s and 60s if you feel like you lived a really fun, productive life, you had a family, you raised them right. Sometimes people aren't going to make it to 80. But at the same time, if you have the ability to potentially make it to 80 years of age, I think you should try your best to fulfill that ability. I think it's a bummer when we have family members and friends that are gone. You know, about 20 or 30 years ago, I attended my great-grandmother Ramona's funeral. And my uncles were there, and my grandmother was there, and a bunch of family members were there, that here we are 25 years later or so, none of those family members are still with us. They are like all gone. And it's just really crazy that my great-grandma Ramona lived to be 92. My grandmother lived to be 98. But my grandmother's children, my uncles, they barely made it into their 50s, and they did not make it into their 60s. And I find that really sad because, let's be honest, if your parents live to be 80 and 90 years old, that means that genetically speaking, if you would have lived a decent, good life, health-wise, you probably should have made it to 85 years old. So because both of my uncles had issues in life with chain smoking and drinking alcohol, and in my Uncle David's case, he had problems with mental health, it just kind of equated to a situation where they both lost probably a good 30 years off of their lives. And the reason I think it's a loss is because my granddad, who I'm not very fond of, and my grandma, who I am very fond of, they live to be quite elderly. I don't know about you, but a guy living to be 85, that's pretty good. And a woman living to be 98 and a half, that's pretty darn good. Their kids should have lived to be 90 years old. But again, that's where you have a choice. You might have the genetics to make it to triple digits. But if your idea of a diet is one where you never attempt one, well, then you're probably not going to make it that far. You know, our grandparents had a huge advantage. When they were in their 20s and 30s, there was no such thing as fast food. And if there was a couple fast food restaurants, they were a novel type situation. They didn't have fast food restaurants at every corner like we do now. So where we've got all these bad habits, other than maybe smoking cigarettes, the older generation didn't really have those same bad habits. I mean, yes, there were still alcoholics. Yes, there were still drug addicts and stuff, but it's not like those people made it to 80 or 90 years old. When your grandparents make it that long, it's because when they were younger, they didn't have access to the same junk that we do. I think I heard over the last couple years that our life expectancy rate actually has gone down in the last couple years, and we all know that there's a certain reason for that, right? But in addition to that certain reason, even if you took away the pandemic, there's still a situation where over the last 20 or 30 years, our kids are becoming morbidly obese. It used to be that because of our fast metabolism that everybody always talks about, it used to be that no matter what kids ate, they would stay skinny and they wouldn't start to gain weight and become obese until their 20s and 30s. Not so much anymore. Now, a third of the kids are morbidly obese, half of the kids are a little bit heavier than they should be, and there's only a small percentage of the kids that are kind of built like kids were 20 or 30 years ago. That's really crazy. I think that's kind of what happens when we have a lot of young people that are having babies. And in the past, when young people had babies, they had grandparents that actually knew what the heck they were doing. And now our kids, when they have babies, their parents, the grandparents, they're not the same caliber. Not the same caliber. Your average grandma in her 40s nowadays doesn't have nearly the life experience that the grandmothers did that were in their 50s back in the days. It seemed to me like grandparents used to be much older than they are now. So, if you've been with me over the last 60 days, congratulations. We are heading into our final month. So I am officially starting the 7:30 rule for myself. I've been trying it the last couple days, done it 1 or 2 days out of the last 3 or 4. But I'm basically going to be going this last month without eating past 7:30. I've also decided that I'm going to go ahead and eat nothing but oatmeal for breakfast over this last month. So if you guys are still in it to try to lose a certain number and you want to join me with the 7:30 club, or if you want to eat oatmeal with me, let me know down below. Guys, the key to working out is to have a situation where you can fool your body into believing that you're not working out. So if you can do little things like stopping eating at 7:30, that's not really fasting because you're still getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner and a couple snacks in. So it's not like you're doing anything weird to your body. You're just calling it quits when it comes to eating at 7:30. And yes, I know that we keep seeing all these videos about how intermittent fasting kills you. But again, I don't consider it intermittent fasting if you just stop eating after your dinner and then the next meal you have is breakfast. And when you wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, I don't think you have to have breakfast right away or you have to fear perishing. So sometimes these studies that we hear are really, really bizarre. Do I think eating one meal a day where you give yourself some 5-hour window is healthy? Probably not. But again, if you're the type that is skipping a midnight snack and then eating a little packet of oatmeal in the morning, I don't really consider that fasting. I consider that getting your hunger and your appetite under control. That's the problem with people, guys. We're all out of control. We think it's normal to eat double portion size. We think it's normal to have seconds and thirds.
we think it's okay to eat 3 or 4 donuts a day, and then we stare at ourselves in the mirror and wonder why the heck we're so fat and chunky. Guys, it's not rocket science. Every time you eat a donut or something, you're eating something that's making your body crave more and more donuts. So what we got to do is we got to eliminate the negatives, accentuate the positives. Let's up our walking this last month, see if we can get it up from 30 or 45 minutes or wherever you are now. Let's see if we can pump that up to an hour a day. If you're already doing an hour a day, that's wonderful. Ask yourself this: is there any fun thing that I could do to step it up a notch this last month? Give me some ideas, Jesse. Well, Bob, think about it. We could do calisthenics. We could do leg extensions. We could do squats without weights. We could do push-ups and sit-ups with just our body weight, right? So again, you could start as little as doing a handful of push-ups a day. Every week you try to increase your push-ups by 2 or 3, and by the end of the month you're doing 20 to 30 push-ups each and every day. And if you continue on that pace, you're going to start to notice that not only are you losing weight, but you're starting to gain and develop muscle. So again, those are positive things. We want to make it where if you're doing a 90-day challenge with us, we want to make it where you get the most benefit out of it as possible. And the best way to do that is to say, hey, this is a 90-day game. We're behind. It's the 4th quarter. This is where we have to make our comeback. You know what happens to teams that are way ahead of the game? They're up by 20 or 30 points. They start to take their starters and they start to put them on the bench, and they bring in their role players, right? And before you know it, the other team has made a comeback, and now they end up losing the game, right? Because they lost control of their advantage. That's what we're doing here. We are behind in the game, but this is a game that we can make a comeback and win. All we have to do is up our intensity, right? Accentuate the positives, start drinking more water, start walking a little bit more, start doing a couple push-ups and sit-ups, and then on the defensive side, let's start eating fewer and fewer donuts. If you've gotten to the point where instead of 3 or 4 Cokes a day, you're down to 1 or 2, just for this last month, let's cut that down to 0. Let's see if we can really help our body achieve its goal of losing some weight. And if your thought for the summer was, hey, I'm just going to try to get into a walking routine, and then after the summer, I'm going to kick it up when it comes to drinking water and avoiding sugar, then great. I don't have a problem with that, and I'll tell you why. Because that still equates to baby steps. And just because we have a 90-day goal or a 90-day challenge, it doesn't mean, that you can't baby step and look at things on a larger scale. Because the reality is, life is not a 90-day challenge. This is supposed to become a lifestyle that we incorporate going forward. So again, if you want to walk right now for this 90-day challenge, and then in the next 90-day challenge, you decide that you're going to cut out all your sugary drinks for water, God, that might be a perfect way to step it up. And then think about this: you're drinking water and you're walking, and then the following 90-day challenge, you decide to cut out those excess processed sugars completely. Guys, you're going to set yourself up for a situation where in 9 months, you're going to lose a ton of weight. So again, when you jump into your think tank while you're walking and you think about these things, there's lots of ways to incorporate baby steps. You don't have to do it the same way I'm talking about, where everything kind of lines up in some 90-day way. The reason I like for things to happen in a 90-day situation is because 90 days equates to 3 months, which basically equates to a season. So if you've been walking with me for the last 60 days, you're basically a walker now. And if 2 or 3 months ago you weren't walking at all, well, look at that transformation you've gone through. You've gone through the situation where at one time you were a non-walker just a handful of weeks ago, right? And now you're walking every single day. Well, let's bump that up. Now that you enjoy walking and it's part of your schedule, let's go ahead and increase the water intake. Let's go ahead and decrease the sugar intake. And let's really give it our best this last month or so to see if we can lose some weight. And again, to people that are out there that are just more than happy to have a walking routine down and you're not ready to start drinking endless water and avoiding sugar, then don't. Just keep walking, and hopefully in the future, you'll get to a point where you are. Sometimes we want to do baby steps, and we're ready for change, but sometimes there's still a little apprehension. Sometimes we don't want to force the issue, right? Because whenever things get forced upon us, we quit things. So if you don't want to force the issue and you don't want to quit, I don't want you to stop your walking routine. I think your walking routine can still do a lot of benefits for you when it comes to strategizing about the problems and issues you and your family are going through. I think it still has a big benefit when it comes to your mental health. And if we can get your mental health up to the highest point that it's capable, pretty soon you're going to want to join that physically. Pretty soon you're going to want to start going to the gym. Pretty soon you're going to want to start eating better. So again, it all starts with the walk. Just keep walking. Maybe eventually some of the babbling that I say, maybe eventually it'll go one ear and get stuck in the other. And that's when I'll have you. That's what we got to do, guys. Even though it's repetitive, even though it seems like, my goodness, this is mundane, we're doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. This sounds like insanity, Jesse. Yeah, Bob, it sounds like it is, but here's the thing. Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We're doing the same thing and we just haven't seen the results yet. There's a difference. This is one of those things where it takes a couple of months before it starts to set in. But look what happens when it does set in. You get a situation like Sean, where he's walking every day, and he's walking a lot. You get a situation like Lily, where she's constantly walking too. You get a situation like Mala, where she's constantly thinking, hey, what are some other things that I can add to make this walk more enjoyable? What are things that I can do to make this more doable? That's what we got to do. We got to look at it like Sean, Mala, and Lily, that it's a lifelong process that we just can't stop on. Are there plateaus? Yes. Are there times where it seems impossible because no matter how hard you try, you still find yourself eating donuts and candy bars and Coca-Colas? Yes. But here's the thing, in the past, you would throw your hands up in the air and call it quits. Let's not do that this time. We've got this. We can do this. This is where you need to know that it's going to get easier. It's not going to get harder. It's going to get easier. So stay positive. Have a wonderful day at work. If you don't work, or if you have a unique schedule where you don't have to be to work for 5 or 6 hours and you're walking with me now, don't stop. You have to get used to doing extra credit. And extra credit could be as simple as just doing one more lap around the block. Get used to pushing yourself a little bit further than you did the day before. With Kaizen, the goal is to be a little bit better today than yesterday, and to be a little bit better tomorrow than we are today. So again, if you drink some sugar, if you eat some sugar, obey the 2/3 rule. Make sure you don't abandon your walk on those days. Make sure that you limit that sugar to just that 1 or 2 donuts, right? Don't go on a binge. Enjoy the donut, enjoy the taste of that sugar on your tongue and on the palate of your mouth, right? And go right back to drinking water, taking a walk, and when you're on your walk, tell yourself, okay, I had the donut. It's time to put the donuts away and to get back to the plan. And speaking of the plan, you guys make the plan work, and I appreciate you. Have a beautiful day.